Hi, welcome to the Avtex webinar. CX Design is more than just journey mapping. I'm Kate Complin, Director of CX Solutions here at Avtex. I have been helping companies identify their customer needs and pain points throughout my career. This is a space I love, and I hope you will find what you learned today to be insightful. You can reach me after this webinar at 952-646-0140 or email me at kcomplin@avtex.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I would be honored to help you in your future CX endeavors. Today, we are going to cover a number of topics from strategy to voice of the customer, journey mapping to ideation, prioritization to roadmaps, and end at measurement. Each topic will describe what is important to consider when moving projects through a CX design process. Now we're going to focus on CX strategy, but before we begin, it is important to have a well-defined vision of what you want your company to stand for. How will you differentiate from your competitors? What are you good at or known for, or what do you want to be known for? Your vision should be your North Star. What will guide all of your customer interactions, decisions, and every customer experience effort you decide to pursue? Many companies start with internal stakeholders' decisions and then maybe check to see if they have negatively affected their customer experience versus starting from the outside in or customer back to the business. It is important to understand their perspective and expectations first. The wonderful thing about moving projects through a customer experience process is that by the time you get to prioritization, you can then focus on what's important to the business. Because up to this point, you have created experiences and made decisions that solve your customers' needs and pain points. It's all been customer first. Now we'll move on to voice of the customer, which is really getting a deep understanding of your persona. Many companies I've spoken with talk about their voice of the customer program and decide this is their CX strategy. Now, understanding your voice of the customer is very important, but there's so much more to do and learn that if we stop here, chances are not much is going to change positively for your customer. Why is this? Well, understanding your customer's pain points in just one channel does not do the customer much good when they hop into another channel. Customers, as we know, are channel agnostic. So solving the customer's problem in one channel also does not do so much good when they inherently hop into another one of your channels. We need to think holistically here. Also, think about all of the data sources you could possibly pull from. It's not just about NPS. What about your competitors? What are they doing? What trends exist in the industry or outside of your industry that are shaping consumer expectations? What about analytics, digital and customer? Where are they dropping out of your experience? What paths are they taking? Is it the same path you intended for them to take? How are you building empathy, not only for your customers, but how about for your employees? Do you truly understand what they're going through as they work with your customers? What roadblocks might you be putting in their way? In terms of gaps in knowledge, how are you solving for these? What types of research are you doing? Is it behavioral? Are you understanding the how and the why they're moving through an experience? Or is it just attitudinal? I would argue that attitudinal has little use when trying to understand your customer's experience. Now is the time to focus your efforts on understanding their behaviors and why they're moving through the experience the way they are. And then once you gather and compile all of this information, then you really need to understand what are the gaps? What don't you know? How are you going to answer those gaps? Now moving on to journey mapping. So a lot of people talk about journey mapping and how they have all these maps. But customer experience sometimes gets a bad rap because this is what companies do. And then often when they are finished mapping out the customer journey, those maps just sit on the shelf. First, make sure you truly have enough data and experience with your customers to really have a 360 view of what experiences they are having across all channels they can interact in. This goes back to the first point. Use a lot of data sources. Next, make sure it is visually appealing and easy to read and understand. Most importantly, you need to do something with it. Place it in a busy area where people can gather around it, see it when they walk by. Use it when you're having meetings about that category or service or experience. Make decisions off of it. If someone is asking for money or resources, use a map to see if that is what is important to your customer before saying yes. Use it for marketing messaging and timing of those messages. Use it for content consistency across channels. And make sure your content is in the right place. Ideate off your pain points so you can get to a better future state experience. Now we're going to move into some design thinking principles. And one of those things is ideation. Now it's time to ideate on how to solve your customer pain points and their needs. It's important to get a cross-functional and cross-channel group of people into the ideation session. It's really important to get people that are creative and innovative, much more important than people that are subject matter experts. Also, don't forget about your employees that are front-facing with your customers every day. I'm sure they would have had an idea or two on how to not only make your customers' lives easier, but also your employees. The tricky part of this process is laying out the ideas in such a way that shows how the new journey will look for your customers in the future. It is just as important to visualize this as it is to visualize current state. This will be your visual for 1 to 3 to 5 years to come. Don't panic that you have a lot of work to do. You don't have to get it all done at once. Start with what you believe will be the most impactful to your customer and your business that you have the ability to do right now. You may be surprised by how making something better will result in big financial rewards. Once you get to this point, your company will usually be willing to let you keep going and going. Another thing to think about when you're going into ideation is analogous models. Who else is doing something that you're trying to achieve? Even better, what companies are setting consumer expectations? Now, once you have your future state vision and a cross-functional and cross-channel team aligned on that, then we need to move to prioritization. What are you going to work on first? There's many different ways to prioritize, and at this point, know that you've done everything customer first up until this point. So everything on your future state customer journey should be important to the customer because it is solving a customer need, a pain point, or a moment that matters. So when you prioritize based on what is most to least important to the customer, remember at this point it's all relative. The more important part of this process then becomes what is most important to the success of your business. Deciding what that is means you have to have the right people in the room. At this point, the folks here are not the same as the folks in the ideation session, not necessarily the same as those mapping out the current state and the future state customer journey. You usually want vice president or above, those responsible and accountable for the success of the business you're trying to improve, the experiences within. After the session, you should be able to build out your roadmap. So from a roadmap perspective, once you line up the experiences you're going to improve from first, second, third, etc., Then you will need to decide on the resources needed for each project. My suggestion is to improve the experience from a multi-channel perspective. No more single-channel efforts. Those belong outside of CX initiatives. Next, you will want to put a timing framework around it, and then begin to think through activities you will need to accomplish to get this done. Success metrics are extremely important. Not only thinking about what success looks like, but also deciding on the KPIs to measure that will show if you have indeed solved the customer pain point or need. If you do not do this, you will likely not solve your customers' problems, but rather risk creating new problems. Consider these your guardrails. You will also want to set a budget and stick to it unless the customer is telling you to shift and make changes. Finally, measurement. Measurement is the last area we will cover in today's webinar. Before your team even gets started on building the new experience, you will want to make sure you are aligned on what success looks like. What KPIs will you measure with goals for each? You'll also want to think about who you will share the results with. Share with more than fewer employees, but also make sure that the employees that do see this information can do something about it. You'll want to think through how often to share the data. Who will make decisions on the data? And when can you stop sharing? I usually suggest hitting your goal on each KPI for a period of at least 3 months before you can feel that you likely have solved your customer's problem or met their needs. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy workday to listen to my webinar, CX Design is More Than Just Journey Mapping. I am excited to hear from you. Please let me know how I can help. Again, I can be reached at 952-646-0140, or you can email me at kompelien@avtex.com.